Right now in the United States, tens of thousands of airport security workers are still showing up to work every single day. They're screening passengers, checking bags, and helping keep airports secure. But here's the part most people don't realize: they're doing all of that without getting paid. And when you actually hear from these workers, the reality hits hard. One worker said, "Everything is a struggle. I feel forgotten." Another question that keeps coming up is simple, but stressful. How long is this going to last? Will we get our paycheck soon? Because for many of these families, missing even one paycheck isn't just inconvenient, it's a crisis. We're talking about rent, groceries, childcare, gas, basic, everyday needs. So if you travel, fly, or even just care about how government decisions affect real people, this situation is worth paying attention to. Because the impact goes far beyond politics. And before we go further, I want to ask you something. When you hear about a government shutdown, do you think most people really understand how it affects everyday workers? Or does it feel distant, until you hear stories like this? Let me know in the comments. I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective. So what's actually happening here? The current shutdown began when funding for the Department of Homeland Security expired on February 14. Congress passed most of the government funding bills, 11 out of 12. But this one, they couldn't agree on. And the disagreement mainly centers around immigration policies, especially involving agencies like ICE and Customs and Border Protection. Democrats want reforms before approving funding. Republicans argue those changes could weaken enforcement and national security. Meanwhile, the administration has criticized the delay, saying this political standoff is putting pressure on essential workers and the system itself. So what happens when funding runs out? Some government employees are considered essential. That means they are legally required to keep working, even if they're not getting paid. And that's exactly what's happening to TSA officers. But not everyone can afford to keep going like that. One father of 3 made the difficult decision to leave his job entirely. He said he loved the work, but his family had to come first. And he's not alone. More than 300 TSA officers have already quit since the shutdown began. Most TSA workers earn between $45,000 and $55,000 a year. That's not a huge margin to absorb missed paychecks. And now, many are struggling just to get by. Some are picking up second jobs. Others are driving rideshare after shifts. Some are even donating blood plasma just to make extra money. And in some cases, workers are sleeping in their cars at airports to save on gas and commuting costs. At the same time, something unusual is happening. Airports and local communities are stepping in to help. In Denver, people are donating grocery and gas gift cards. In Seattle, a food pantry was opened specifically for affected federal workers. Some airport restaurants are offering free or discounted meals. It's become a kind of grassroots support system. But think about that for a moment. These are federal employees responsible for national security, and they're relying on donations just to get through the month. So far, airport operations are still running. Wait times in many places are normal, around 10 to 20 minutes. But there are warning signs. Some airports have seen delays stretch to 2 or even 3 hours. In Philadelphia, a checkpoint had to temporarily shut down due to staffing shortages. And absences among TSA workers have reportedly more than doubled. Not because people don't care, but because some simply can't afford to keep coming in. And here's the bigger concern: airport security relies on teams. If even a few people are missing, the entire system slows down. Like a traffic bottleneck, it only takes one disruption to affect everything. Experts are also warning that prolonged staffing shortages could create vulnerabilities. Not that security has failed, but the longer this continues, the more pressure builds. And this isn't the first time. Earlier this year, TSA workers already went through a 43-day shutdown without pay. In fact, they've spent nearly half the fiscal year working under shutdown conditions. That kind of instability has long-term effects. Morale drops. Workers leave. And recruiting becomes harder. One expert even pointed out something striking. Right now, someone working at a fast food restaurant inside an airport may have more job stability than a federal security worker. Politically, shutdowns often turn into standoffs. Both sides believe holding firm benefits them. But once everyday people start feeling the impact, public pressure builds quickly. And airports are one of the most visible places where that happens. Especially now, with spring break travel increasing and millions of passengers moving through the system. So the big question is, how long can this continue? How long can workers show up without pay before the system starts to crack? Because at the end of the day, this highlights something bigger. A lot of families live paycheck to paycheck. Not because they're irresponsible, but because costs are high, wages are tight, and life is unpredictable. And all it takes is one missed paycheck to start a chain reaction. So while a government shutdown might sound like political news, for the people living through it, it becomes very real, very fast. What happens next depends on Washington. Congress has to reach an agreement before pay resumes. Historically, workers do get back pay. But that doesn't help with bills that are due right now. And that's why you're seeing food drives, donations, and communities stepping in. Because when systems stall, people step up. Thanks for spending a little time with me today.